Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Another episode of AKP Sports Talk. That's Ari. I'm Korea. It is August 22nd here. Like I said, we've been counting down the days. Like I said, Ari, you put it up 2 more days. We are exactly 2 days away from the beginning of college football. We can smell it. We can taste it. It's right around the corner. We've been waiting for this moment. It's finally here. Obviously, kickoff. Literally, game starts in about 2 days from now, obviously, in Dublin. Really excited for that first matchup. Obviously, we got some more college football futures from me. Obviously, now we're going to start transitioning into more of those NFL futures. Obviously, getting closer to the NFL season. Ari has his NFL future, so I'm going to wrap up the college football talk with my favorite two unders of the season in terms of wins. I'm going to get into the first one in a little bit because that one I'm going to take my time with that one. But first, I'm going to get into Auburn team total here. I'm taking their under 7.5 wins this year. That's minus 135 right now on DraftKings. I think I saw that price maybe go up to minus 140, but I got it at minus 135 over the weekend, this past weekend, excuse me. When I saw Auburn's offense, they didn't change much, right? You look at this transfer portal, and you see all of these, this coaching carousel, and see all these teams changing around you, and in the SEC, obviously, first they're bringing in Oklahoma and Texas, one, and two, in the SEC that's already evolving with all this coaching carousel. Auburn didn't really do anything. They picked up obviously some guys, in the transfer portal. They obviously brought in their freshman class, but in terms of really making a name, they didn't really do much. They're still sticking with Peyton Thorne, and I'm not really high on him as a quarterback. Out of Michigan State, he's pretty much getting a second opportunity, and he didn't really do much last year. Obviously, Auburn's offense was the thing holding them back last year. Their defense was well stouted, but against like those highly stouted offenses or teams that can really push the ball, in terms of scoring fast, at Auburn, they would go 3 and out maybe, or maybe have a stall drive. I don't really think Auburn really did much this offseason to say that they have taken a step up and improved, that they're going to win 7 games, like or even 8. I don't think they even win 7. I think you look at this schedule, right? They're going to start out 4-0 because they face, Alabama A&M in their first game of the season, and then they play Cal, which I honestly at first I was a little back and forth, but because it's at Auburn and Cal, I think they're still going to get used to this whole ACC schedule. I think Auburn wins that game, and then they play New Mexico, and that if they lose to New Mexico, look, I saw that they lost to New Mexico State last year at home. That was already embarrassing enough. If they lose to New Mexico, I mean, I would laugh, but I don't think they're losing at home to New Mexico. And then they play Arkansas, a team that I'm not really high on. This Arkansas team has had so many questions, and I think they're a team that they may finish, 4-8 as well. And I think they're going to be struggling around that mid-tier in the SEC. So I think they start out 4-0, obviously all playing at home. And then they welcome Oklahoma to town in their first true test. And Oklahoma is already a slight favorite. I don't think Auburn, I think it's going to be Auburn's first true test. Oklahoma is probably going to be well tested by then. I think Oklahoma wins that on the road, and then they got to go play Georgia the next week. Oh, that's your welcome. That's your first road game, Georgia. Yeah, you're losing. And then they got to go play Mizzou after that. Yeah, you're losing. And then they got to go play Kentucky after that. Yeah, you're losing. So their home schedule is nice because they start out at home for the first 5 games, but that last game against Oklahoma, I don't like them winning that game. And then your 3 road games, 2 of them are ranked, obviously number 1 Georgia, and then obviously Mizzou with Brady Cook and Luther Burden. And then they got to go play Kentucky, who's a sneaky team that I think they can win that home game. So they drop from what I have them 4-0 to 4-4, and just like that. And then I think they do beat Vanderbilt, which goes up to 5-4, and then they have an easy slated this non-conference game against Louisiana Monroe, which they should win, so they go 6-4. And then Ari, how they finish the year off? They go play Texas A&M at home. I don't see them winning that. And of course, the last game of the year, the Iron Bowl. I don't see them winning that either at Alabama this year. So that way is about 6-6, maybe below that, depending on if they drop one of those games that they do win. Depending on what happens with this offense. We saw how bad their offense was this year. Look, their defense is not a problem. Obviously, they do have some talented guys on that defense side of the ball. We've seen them throughout the draft, guys like Derek Hall, obviously, and many names coming from Auburn in terms of the talent. But in terms of that offense, right, there are so many questions. And I've listed all these names. teams like Oklahoma who have a good offense. Team like Georgia, obviously Carson Beck, a Heisman candidate. Mizzou, we already talked about Brady Cook and Luther Burden. Kentucky has a good offense at home. A&M, it's known for their defense. I mean, in a defensive battle like that, I'm going to give it to Texas A&M, who's a slight favorite already. And then Alabama, we know, obviously, it's a whole new system of Kalen DeBoer and Alabama, but, we saw what he did at UW last year with how that offense was. Obviously, you can credit more to Ryan Grubb, but, still, it was his team at the end of the day. So, when you look at this Auburn team, I don't really sniff out 8 wins. It's going to be hard for them in a harder SEC conference near. Obviously, they have to play Oklahoma, their first-year team. They have 3 back-to-back road games that are just really hard. And a favorite system of mine for college football was targeting teams that have 3 straight road games, fading them in those, because obviously it's 3 straight road games. So that is from October 5th all the way to October 26th. They do have that bye in between, but it's still 3 road games back-to-back. So I do want to target maybe Georgia, Mizzou, and Kentucky in those 3 games as well. But, just in terms of how their schedule looks, I don't really see over 7.5 wins for this team. It's going to be really hard for them, especially just in this conference, with how, talented these teams still are, their schedule. They got to play Georgia and Alabama. They still got to play Mizzou, who's very talented, we know. I just don't like the fact that their schedule does not really match their team. Their offense is really, not anything that I will brag about. Their defense is all that they really use the momentum for. But, another year of Hugh Freeze, and I don't really see any big changes. And I'm not really high on this team. So I'm taking their Auburn team total under 7.5 wins. I think it's a great look here. But Ari, you know what I'm here for. Washington team total under 6.5 wins. I got it at minus 125. I know you got it at minus 115 earlier in the week, but I want to talk to all my Husky fans out there. Guys like Caden, Adil, Brendan, Owen, Alex, Ryan, and all the other Husky D riders. This is going to be a fun season for me. Why? Because I've been praying for this. I'm always praying for the downfall. And when this offseason came, that was the downfall. First, DeBoer said bye-bye. He went to Alabama, right? And then all the roster guys, they went too. They went to the NFL. Respectfully, they were that talented. Obviously, Penix getting drafted. Guys like McMillan, Polk. We saw how talented they are. They went to the draft. They got drafted, right? What happened to UW, right? Everyone is saying that everyone's saying, it's the Big Ten. It's not that big of a deal. I think we're going to have a good year. Let me tell you right now. It ain't happening, okay? Cut the delusion out. You're not winning. In fact, I personally have a side bet with my friend Wyatt. Obviously, Ari, I have them going 5-7. This is going to be a great season for them. 5-7, just like TCU did last year. Let's look at the schedule, shall we? Obviously, Ari, you talked about the majority. So if you want to go talk about, more of the analytical side, go reference Ari's video back on Monday, if that's correct, on his analysis on why he's taking Washington team total under. But for me and my personal reasons, I just wanted to wait because this has been the best part of this is what I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for this moment. We see their schedule, right? They have 2 easy games against Weber State and Eastern Michigan. Week 3. Look, I'm not saying nothing, right? I'm not saying nothing here, but we saw how last year went, right? I took us to, when I say us, I am wearing the shirt. I took them to cover the spread. They almost won that. That spread has dropped. I've been eyeing it. Went from 8.5 to 7.5. Money line's going in that opposite direction. I don't know. All I'm saying is I've seen Stranger Things. It's a great show as well. I know you've seen that show as well. Then going to Northwestern, right? And I believe they host Northwestern. They should win that. Going to Rutgers, you've talked about that. That's a short week for them. I don't like them going to Rutgers. That's all the way across the country, late night over there. Obviously, I don't really like it's obviously the long travel. And then you know how they welcome him back? They welcome back with the reigning defending champs who beat them last year in the big game. Michigan, who's already big favorites on the road. Then you got to go to Iowa, who obviously we saw the whole Kirk Ferentz suspension thing, but don't take it seriously. It's only a game. They're playing Illinois State. They're still going to be great. We still talk about Iowa on both sides of the ball, defensively and offensively. I still love Iowa, especially at home. You know, they're a lot better at home, I'd say. So give me Iowa. Then they got to go to Indiana. And look, I'm not saying nothing, but that could be one of those sneaky games, you know, where you expect one team to win, but something happens. And I'm not saying anything, but Indiana on October 26th. Then USC comes to town. I don't really know how I'm not really high on USC this year. The reason is that whole offense is new. Caleb Williams is gone. Brendan Rice is gone. Lloyd is gone. Everyone is gone. That whole offense is gone, right? I don't know how Lincoln Riley is going to do in a whole new year with a whole new cast, essentially. But we saw a little bit of it in the bowl game, and you know we saw some highlights, but there's nothing really to say after one bowl game where you know you're just playing for fun. And then the beautiful one here, November 9th. You ready for this one? Oh boy, Ari. November 9th, 2024. I'm going to be watching that game. I'm going to have my popcorn in one hand because I'm going to watch UW get their butts handed to by Penn State on the road. They're going to have their butts in their hand handed to them by Penn State because Penn State is going to kick them so far into the dirt. I'm telling you right now. And then they finish off the season against good old UCLA. Oh, boo-hoo. And then the last game of the season, right? Against that team that they always say, oh, they're not good. Oh, they're fraudulent. Oh, 0 championships. Well, they do have 0 championships, but this year, ooh, it's not going to be pretty for UW. It's not going to be pretty for UW. They're going to go to Oregon, and they're going to get their asses handed to them. We're going to say that right now. So, all right, I know you counted the losses. I am seeing at least 6 good losses for this UW team. With Michigan, Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, Rutgers, and I have them potentially losing at home to USC. I can see a 7th loss potentially with Indiana, but because of just how this season is, and obviously I'm not going to rule out this one. I could see a lot there, especially without Indiana early in the season. Who knows? You know, obviously the Cougs are going to be coming in with some intensity. They know it's a big game, and obviously the other side knows it's a big game too, so you never know how that goes. But just with how the schedule looks, you know, with playing Rutgers and then Michigan and Iowa in that back-to-back-to-back system, I don't think they win a single game in that. That's a really hard trio, especially with Big Ten football. And Ari, you know, Big Ten football, it's very brute, very physical, you know, especially on the road when you got to go play Iowa at Iowa. That defense is for real. We saw it last year. It's one of the best, even though obviously everyone likes to hate on their offense, which is how bad it was. Their defense was for real. And that's how they were a top 25 team last year. And they're already a top 25 team this year without playing a game because of the respect of how good their defense is. So I don't think they'd win a single game between Rutgers, Michigan, and Iowa. I think they drop USC. I think they drop Penn State. And I think they drop Oregon. So that's already 6 losses right there. And adding on potentially one more, I don't think this UW team potentially is bowl eligible. I see them fringing around 6-6. You know, we've talked about, you know, the odds makers making this, you know, 6.5 line. You know, there was someone in our group mentioned taking a 5.5 as a sprinkle. You know, that's a little bit risky. You know, I have a side bet obviously with the under 5.5. I have them going 5-7, or just not being bowl eligible essentially. But I'm just more targeting the fact that they're not going to be over 500 this year. This is going to be a rough schedule for them. Like I said, I pointed out 6 losses. Going back to Ari's explanation about the Huskies on Monday, you know, he pointed all that out. So obviously go reference that on Monday for some more analysis from Ari's side. But from my side, I just love fading the Huskies. And obviously, like I said, and just a PSA for all the people I mentioned, Caden Adil, all those Husky clowns. Every single week, they lose. I have a meme of every week. Am I here?
Okay, yeah, now you're back.
Okay, sorry. Every week they lose, Psyche CTCU. Every week they lose. So expect that sutures. UW team total under, Auburn team total under. Those are my two big future hammers for the under. I'm not high on these teams with especially Auburn's schedule. It's just super hard. Like I said, they have to play all those SEC teams in a row. Like I said, 3 on the road, and then they got to play Kentucky. With UW's hard schedule, they got to play Rutgers, then Michigan, then Iowa, which are 3, I'd say, especially with, how it's situated with Rutgers on a short week on the road, and then they got to go play Michigan, even though it's rest. Obviously, it's Michigan still. And then they got to go play Iowa on the road, which is obviously a great team there. So, with how their schedule situated, I don't see them winning a game there. And then they still got to play Penn State on the road, Oregon on the road. Those are 2 losses I see. So that's 45 losses. And then, like I said, I can see them dropping a game at home against USC, then potentially. So that's 6 losses right there. So like I said, the under 6.5, I think is a great look there. Those are my 2 big college football plays. Like I said, I put a little more on UW team total under for this year. I put maybe I have a 5-unit play on that for my side bet, and then I have a full unit on that, and then another full unit on the Auburn team total under as well. Sorry. Let's transition to the NFL now. I know, obviously, we've been waiting for this moment. This is the big time. Obviously, we've been really waiting for this. Obviously, college football is nice to have, but we really do miss the NFL a little bit more. So, Ari, what's your first NFL future you are going to be officially given out now as we get closer and closer to the NFL season?
Yeah, I mean, next week it'll be more like book plays, like we did or more not book plays, but more like team lines and stuff like that for me, at least for me, for next week. I'm just starting off with a simple player prop, backing Isaiah Pacheco, and I went back and forth with rushing yards and rushing touchdowns, which is 6.5. I like both lines, but I went back and forth with which one to give out today. But I elected to go with the rushing yards. Last year, he ran for 935 yards on 205 carries. And, last year he was the primary early down back, but he was mixing in and off the field with Jerick McKinnon on the passing downs. And then you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who had his role, who's now, hopefully he's okay, dealing with a PTSD from an incident, I think it was like from 2018. So right now the Chiefs backfield is kind of there's really no clear number 2 right now behind Pacheco. So I think it's going to lead to an even bigger role for him this year. I mean, you look at last year and he had a lot of games, a lot of weeks with, 15 plus carries, but he did have 2 games where he only had 8 carries, and he only had 1 game where he had 20 plus carries, and that was exactly 20 carries. So I think we're going to see a season this year where he's going to have more games, with that 18 to 20 plus carry range. I think he's going to have, double-digit carries every single week, this year, unlike last season. So I think, he had 205 carries last year. I think that number is going to go up by, a fair amount this year. And he already, he beat this line by 30-plus yards. So I don't know if that's, like, crushing that line, but he already hit it pretty easily, with that role last year. Not a limited role, but a role that I think will expand again this year in terms of carries. So, again, I went back and forth with also 6.5 rushing touchdowns, which I like as well. I mean, he was the pretty clear goal line back, last year for this Chiefs backfield, which won't change. And obviously, they're gonna live in the red zone again, this year.
Ari, it may have actually happened.
Scott Service. Was it Divish?
This is from Ken Rosenthal. He says, sources, Mariners expected to fire Scott Service, named Dan Wilson the manager.
Oh, yeah, not a big surprise.
Well, good riddance. Anyways, Ari, I'll let you continue on Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly done. But, yeah, again, just thinking that, he's going to have a slightly bigger role this year, in the Chiefs backfield, and they already beat it with the role he had last year. So, again, I like both lines for yards and rushing touchdowns. But I'm going with rushing yards as the slightly more favorable just because, they like to get tricky around the goal line sometimes with Mahomes and the trick plays and stuff like that. So I think both lines hit, but I'm just a little more confident in the rushing yards.
I was actually looking at Isaiah Pacheco as well. I actually was looking at the touchdowns as well. I just think because he is such a pivotal part of this Chiefs offense. We look at last year, you mentioned he cleared that line by 30 plus yards, and we saw, emergence of a RB2. We saw, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, some remnants of, the potential backups. But you mentioned with all the stuff really going on with, the Chiefs backfield besides Pacheco, you mentioned not really a clear RB2, which obviously presents, a big advantage for Pacheco, who obviously already established himself as the clear RB1 in Kansas City and a real pivotal part of that offense. We saw, whether it was just, in the regular season or in their playoff run leading to the Super Bowl, we saw him, you mentioned it too, the goal line situations, where he, maybe it's a trick play or they do the ring around the rosy dance thing that they do, and they go to the line and make some play up. I don't know how they do it, but you mentioned Isaiah Pacheco and his just running ability. He's more of a power back. He loves to earn those extra yards as well on the ground. So he's definitely not someone who likes to just settle for like a 5 or something yard gain. He likes to fight for those extra yards as well. So it's taking a guy like that, and who's pretty young in his career, not knocking on wood, no major injuries in his career so far that we know of. It looks like a good year for Pacheco on the ground. Who ironically was a late round back for this Chiefs team and now has kind of just emerged as a power back for the Chiefs this for this dynasty that they're in right now. Post Tyreek Hill essentially. So I do like this over 900 essentially line, pretty much guaranteeing him to have a 900 rushing yard season. I think it's a great line for him. And you're getting at essentially a pick 'em price. I think it's a great look there. As Ari mentioned, we're getting closer to the NFL season. Next week we're going to be giving out some more futures as well. I will be also giving out some more player prop futures as well, getting that season entry loaded up as well. We're just getting closer and closer to the beginning of the NFL season. Obviously, college football just a couple days away. You can find our futures and for both college football and the NFL on our Twitter below, AKP Sports Talk, as well with this video. We'll have all of that post momentarily. Obviously, tomorrow, Friday, we're going to have our full best bets for the weekend. That is college football as well, mostly college football, of course. I will be having my best bets tomorrow. Obviously, Ari gave some earlier in the week, but just hammering down on some more, heading into the weekend. Obviously, as I mentioned, next week, all NFL focus, giving out some NFL futures as we head into, the final real week off for the NFL as they get ready for week one, just about a couple weeks away here. But Ari, this has been another episode of AKP Sports Talk. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. That's Ari, I'm Korea. Obviously, tomorrow we'll be back for some more best bets, obviously getting ready for the great welcoming back of week 0, college football. We're back. We've been waiting for this. That's Ari, I'm Korea. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.